I credit a lot of my drive for survival knowing that she was going to be born. Because, like I said, we found out we were pregnant with her 2 weeks before I was diagnosed. So my mission was to survive to meet my child.
That was Jim Ehrich discussing the song Don't Turn Away From Me, which I wrote after being inspired by Psalm 38. I'm Shep Rosenman. This is The Rest is Commentary, where we discuss what songs inspired by the Psalms, or Tehillim, inspire in my guests. Jim is a partner at Rothman Brecker Ehrich Livingston, one of the preeminent boutique literary agencies in Los Angeles. He works in film, television, and IP, representing writers and directors. His expertise in IP ranges from Pulitzer Prize winners to high-end comic creators and more. Jim represents the creators of such shows as The Morning Show, Big Bang Theory, Bates Motel, and countless Marvel films and characters. He is one of those multi-talented people. He's a fabulous representative, a competitive sailor, and a creative in his own right with his ability to do woodwork and pretty much fix anything. Most important, Jim has become a good friend through years of representing a wide variety of fascinating clients together. Jim and I will be talking about guilt as a step towards resolution and personal growth, moving towards acceptance, finding faith and spirituality outside organized religion, how surviving cancer changes your perspective on life and your priorities, music as a powerful influence on personal experience, seeking deeper understanding of yourself, and so much more. Let's start off by listening to Don't Turn Away From Me.
On my skin, my bones are broken. I am bent, I am bold, mind about to explode. My wounds fester and cyst. Did I cause this? Don't rebuke me, you are angry. Mushrooms on the verge of collapse. My depression adapts. It's over eager. I ache with fever. My eyes are fading. My strength is failing. Don't rebuke me, you are angry. Turn away from me. This is Yes, I fumbled the ball. I have perfect recall. In the day, in the night, it is pain I invite. As I fall down the stairs and say my evening prayers, will you answer the door as I am hitting the floor? Don't rebuke me, you are angry. Don't turn away from me. This is fury.
Hello, Jim.
Hello, Shep. Lovely to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you agreeing to participate in this project.
It's an honor.
I want to start off by asking you the question that I ask everyone. I write these songs, and they're inspired by the Psalms.
Mm-hmm.
I offer them to you as a gift. We don't always like our gifts. The question is, what did that gift inspire in you? Questions, commentary, hope, hatred, love, loathing.
So the song that I chose because I like the music and particularly the guitar line, right? What I didn't expect to get out of it, and maybe I should have given the underlying source, was doing a deeper dive on Psalm 38 and learning the meaning of it and the complexity of it, which blew my mind because I didn't know it. And I thought it was a really interesting life lesson, and it had a lot of subtext with understanding, guilt, acceptance, just a lot of things that I had not considered in certain ways. So that was a gift for sure.
Wonderful.
To be able to take away something from that and consider some things that maybe I hadn't considered before.
Can you share more about what you considered in response?
I had read up more. I did a Cliff Notes version in addition to reading the lyrics, reading the passage, and then doing some homework on people's interpretation of the passage in addition.
Wow, you did a lot of work, man.
I was curious, right? Because the song has heavy lyrics, and I thought, this is really interesting. And how do all these lyrics go together? There's a lot going on in this particular piece, and reading some backstory of people's interpretation of the story of a person who had cheated on their significant other, if that's accurate, and then the guilt that's associated with it, and the guilt being some of the penance or sorrow to come to terms with it,
Right.
in addition to outside perception and future acceptance when you finally meet your maker. So I just think there were a lot of things going on there that I hadn't really considered, and I hadn't really considered guilt as part of maybe a process to move on, which I thought was really interesting.
In the Jewish tradition, according to Maimonides, the way one gets through a sin, a mistake, the first step is acknowledgement. Right? So that's the feeling guilty, right? And not just feeling it, but like recognizing, oh, I screwed up. I did something wrong. The next step, and this is very appropriate for the time, we are in the Hebrew month of Elul, which is the month where Jews world over start gearing up for the process of starting a new year, which includes teshuvah. The Hebrew word is teshuvah or teshuvah, which literally means return, but in English typically gets translated as repentance. The repentance process is step 1, acknowledge. Step 2, apologize to whoever you've wronged, whether it's God or another human being or both. Step 3 is a commitment never to do it again.
Right.
And it's not supposed to be a BS commitment. You have to kind of really say, I'm really committed to never do X again. In the case of the subject who's in so much pain, it's, according to Jewish tradition, King David, right? That's the person who, he slept with Bathsheba, Bathsheba, right?
Yeah, I read.
His guilt is tormenting him, and there are times where guilt will torment all of us, but by and large, if I do something wrong, I don't let the guilt sit with me. I'll feel guilty until I go through that acknowledgement, I'm sorry, I'll never do it again process. So you had said that you had never thought of guilt in that way. What do you mean?
Well, I always think of it as first acknowledgement and acceptance of doing something wrong, right? That's a common thing, and that's something that, I try and instill in my children and anyone, right? But I don't normally associate, for whatever reason, guilt as part of the process to get past acceptance, or I should say get past acknowledgement and get acceptance. So I don't really associate guilt that way. Maybe that's I was born and raised a congregational Christian. My wife is Catholic. Catholic guilt is a whole thing.
Right.
Right. But I don't necessarily associate it as a step to a resolution, if you will.
How is a congregational Christian raised with respect to guilt and these kinds of making mistakes?
The way I was raised was maybe a little bit looser in terms of organized religion, or at least was my personal belief growing up, where I didn't necessarily need a specific place of worship to kind of find my faith. In that respect, it's a little bit looser than maybe some of the other organized religions.
Got it. Congregational Christianity or just your family's version?
It was my family's version of whatever that was, and maybe that particular congregational church.
Does that mean that if you don't need a place of worship, that wherever you are is your place of worship?
Yeah. So when I was growing up, I had that one side of it, but I also went to a very kind of hippied out high school, if you will. So people like Ralph Waldo Emerson and Walt Whitman and, being out in nature to connect with something larger, that was meaningful to me. Right. So I found that having faith was tied more to that kind of lifestyle and being in nature and being out that way than necessarily being in an organized church or place of worship.
Right. I think that there's a tension in that. I mean, first of all, in the Jewish tradition, there are all these strands. There isn't a single Jewish tradition. There's the traditional halachic, legal perspective where it's all about following the rabbinic law specifically, right? But there's also then the Hasidic tradition, which is both Kabbalistic, mystical, and also there's a very, very strong natural strand. So when you go back to the Baal Shem Tov, 1600s, I think, how did the Baal Shem Tov worship? He would advise you to kind of go out and be in nature. And particularly the rabbi who's best known for this is the Breslover Rebbe, Rebbe Nachman. He would say, do his bodedus, which means be alone, basically. And do it wherever you are, but the best place to do it is nature. Right. If you want to scream, go scream. You want to cry, go cry. You want to laugh and dance, laugh and dance. We didn't read Thoreau and Whitman or Emerson when I was in high school, or if we did, it just kind of went in one ear and out the other. But when I took my survey course of American literature, obviously we got exposed to all of that. And, it really stuck with me. Rugged individualism, quiet desperation. It's all very much a part of my background. And I encountered that at a time where I had left observance.
That's interesting.
You said you had faith, right? So
right.
I've never lost faith in a thing that many people call God. I don't really know what it is, but is it something that we create in conversations like this because they're about things that are bigger than ourselves?
Right.
Or does it exist on its own? Do I believe that, God is moving the marbles or the chess pieces around the board? No. Do I think God has the power to do that? Yes. And that may mean that God may do that, but I may or may not witness that.
Yep.
And in the same way, because I don't know what God's doing, that allows for God to not act in awful things, whether it's the Holocaust or climate change, assuming you believe in climate change. I just don't know. I just know that. I don't know what.
Right.
I don't know how. I'm very interested in this idea that you've always had faith, but don't necessarily need a place of worship.
I think part of it is it's a way to connect yourself with the world and quiet the environment around you without outside influence, which allows you to have the time to reflect in maybe a way that when I'm in a spiritual place or even in a mass or whatever it may be, you're following along with the story of what's being told within the mass. But I enjoy being out and having the time and space to think myself about the larger universe and,
Sure.
and those types of things.
And do you and your wife see eye to eye on this, or do you just kind of allow for different perspectives?
I think it's a different perspective. My wife grew up Catholic and her family was very Catholic, and they have a strong foundation in that.
Mm-hmm.
And my children do as well.
Uh-huh.
So part of, I guess, being a little looser about it allows for that kind of flexibility
Sure.
and freedom where everybody finds their own path in their own way. So
Right.
I was very happy for them to find the thing that worked for them. Because why wouldn't you want that for someone? So I'm a cancer survivor. In 2006, I was diagnosed with ALL leukemia. 2 weeks before I was diagnosed, my wife found out she was pregnant. So it was a very complicated time in our lives. My treatment was 2 years. So the first year and a half of Sophie's life, she was constantly in and out of the care of my parents and our house. And at times we had to be apart because of my chemo. And when she had to get live vaccines as a child, she couldn't be home. So she would go to her parents' place and my wife's parents' place in Miami at that time. So it was just a complicated time. And it's something that I didn't hide from my children, that I was a cancer survivor or had been diagnosed. It was something that we just talked about very conversationally, and that's just the path I chose to go with it.
I remember when you told me it wasn't right at the beginning. It was a few months in, but you were like, I'm going to meet this head on. And
Yeah.
It was shocking because we had no idea what was going on.
Right.
Even then, like that kind of going head on into the wind. I'm using that reference on purpose.
I appreciate that.
Jim is a sailor. Racing sailor?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I raced last night.
Nice. Did you win?
We did not do terribly well. We came in 4th or 5th out of 12.
Okay, that's top third. I'll take it.
It's fine.
So that shows a type of bravery, and bringing it back to what we were talking about, it shows a type of faith. So in those moments, to the extent you're comfortable talking about it, was your faith in yourself, in the medical system, in God, all of the above? None of the above.
No, it's a good question, and it's a really interesting question. And I would say it happened so fast. And part of the reason that we probably didn't catch up for a month or two is I was inpatient for a month in the hospital. So there was very little communication going on generally. But I think to the faith part of it, I always credit, and maybe this is why Sophie really charged LLS, but I credit a lot of my drive for survival knowing that she was going to be born. Because like I said, we found out we were pregnant with her 2 weeks before I was diagnosed. So my mission was to survive to meet my child.
That's so powerful.
Would I put it into science? Would I put it into the medical profession? Would I put it into faith? I kind of put it into all of it, right? I had faith in my eventual doctor, not my first doctor, that he was phenomenal. I just had the spirit and drive to want to survive. And I think that makes a difference. It doesn't make all the difference, obviously, but it gave me purpose.
So purpose helped you maintain faith.
Yes, I would say so.
Interesting. I mean, would you say that that's true in general?
Yeah, I do. It's important, and it's something that I try to instill in my kids as well.
How do you instill that in your kids?
Look, that experience changed my life, obviously,
Sure.
and it really forces you to deal with life and death. It forces you to deal with the things that are important to you. The odds were not good when I was diagnosed. They were grim, but that makes you really take a hard look at things. And, you have to live in the moment. And I want my kids to enjoy the life that they have, and obviously my wife too. But it forces you to really analyze what's important to you and make sure that you're putting your energy in the right place. And it takes time to really correct putting energy elsewhere and really take a look. And it's a constant reminder to oneself to look and go, hey, is this really worth worrying about? Is this worth the time and energy that I'm going to put into this?
In some Jewish traditions, when one survives cancer, when one survives any other disease, car accident, not falling off a rock face when you might have, or falling partway, whatever it is, any dangerous experience like that. Like I fell off a ladder.
Right. I remember that.
I remember, right? I know we talked
Absolutely.
a lot after that. So there's a tradition that on the date of survival, whether it's after your doctor tells you you're going to survive or the date you were diagnosed, just pick your date.
Right.
You host a su'udas hoda'ah, a meal of thanks. And it could just be your family. It could be a wider community meal to intentionally to remind yourself to not only say thank you, but to say, okay, so you said it forced me to look at things differently. So some things changed. Maybe I'll even ask, what's changed? And you mentioned that it's a constant reminder, but do you have structures, processes, markings on your calendar, something to remind you to look at that again and make sure you're holding yourself accountable to the changes you wanted back then?
Well, that's such a powerful question. This may be the weak way to say it, but I intentionally did not put a date to it. I have the Windows 06 to 08 that I was treated. I finished in, I think, February of 08. For me, I didn't want to put a point on it because I didn't want to mark a specific day that I was diagnosed with cancer, that my survival rate was limited. I find it easier to accept and cope with things sometimes not putting a finite date on it. Having awareness of rough times, but I just find it easier to process that way.
I don't think that that's weak at all. I think, look, know thyself.
Yeah,
right? It starts
that's right.
there.
And I'm happier for it.
Yeah. So this is your way of processing this.
Correct.
And there's nothing weak about that. On the contrary, it's strong because,
I know myself.
Look, I've known you for a long time now, and you're the best Jim I've ever known. Right? You've always been you, soft-spoken, polite, politic, and not afraid to be aggressive. So I
appreciate that.
For those who don't know, Jim and I do a lot of work together. We represent a lot of clients together. Jim is an agent, a lit agent, and he's a partner at Rothman Brecker Ehrich, that's Jim, Livingston. And I also want to point out that the acronym is Rebel, but there is another company called Rebel. So you've always been very much yourself. And that's true of everyone that I know there. Less so for the people who are no longer there.
Right.
Right? But the people who have remained, you, Rob, Vanessa, Dan, all who you are. I'm sure that that's true for everyone we deal with, but I don't always know it. I don't always feel it. And that's like one of the gifts of the pandemic. Not that there were really many gifts, but staying at home, okay, maybe it's a gift in that we saved a few $100,000 in rent. But we took that money and we hired new lawyers. So it's a wash financially. But because we expanded our circle, that was a gift. Mm-hmm. The bigger gift for me is that everyone started using Zoom. I was using Zoom before in my office. People would see whatever pictures I had up on my wall behind my desk. Now everyone sees my guitars. It becomes a conversation starter.
Of course.
And it forced me to, if you will, to distinguish by 1,000 differences, to be outed. Like I wasn't afraid to tell people. My friends knew that I was a musician. Right. But now everybody in the business that is on a Zoom call with me knows that I'm a musician. I remember one person asked me if I ever use the guitars. Like they are not art. I use all of them, including the little
Great
mandolin.
Gatsby. A bunch of unopened books on the
Exactly. Exactly. Right. So you are more you than you've always been you, but you're more you. Do you attribute any of that? Is that just age and maturity, or did your cancer survival experience have anything to do with that?
Oh, that definitely has. I mean, that has informed everything since the date that it happened, right? From that point forward, you kind of reprioritize what's important to you. And some of it is age, obviously, but that accelerated it. When you're 31 years old and you hear you have a 30% chance of survival, you're going to figure that out really fast. And and really make the most of the time that you have. And you have to be reminded of it.
So that's the second half of that question. Are there things you do to remind yourself of that from time to time?
I wouldn't say that there are specific things that I do. The thing that I need to be better about, which I try to be good about, is to remind myself in moments of stress or in moments of, work problems or whatever they may be, that like this too will pass. It's not that big a deal in the long run. In the scheme of things, we will get a good answer. We will get a good resolution. Do not stress. And that's something that I think is really important. And sometimes I'm very good at it, and other times I fail miserably at it.
That's life.
And that is life.
Were you sailing all these years, or is that new?
No, I've been sailing. Oh my God. I've been sailing since I was maybe 8 years old, maybe
so
younger.
your whole life.
I've been sailing my whole life. I taught sailing all through high school and college. I've been racing that entire time. And then when I moved to LA, I started racing out here in 97.
Where are you from originally?
I'm kind of a mutt. I moved around a lot as a kid, but most of my life I grew up in Connecticut.
Well, that explains a lot.
So we were on Long Island Sound. Yeah, it does explain a lot.
Yeah, Connecticut was always like, and I'm sure there are many exceptions to the rule, but like as a New Yorker, you go to Connecticut to meet someone nice.
Well, that's kind.
Exactly. Not so with Massachusetts.
Yeah, there's a not so nice term for people from Massachusetts.
What's that?
Masshole.
I don't know. I lived there and I never heard that. That's amazing. Sherry's from Massachusetts.
There you go.
Wow.
Next time someone cuts you off in the car with Massachusetts plates, you can say, Guy's a masshole.
That's awesome. So you opened with this. You said that you liked the music. When I first asked you about it, and this was many months ago.
Yeah.
Right? You said something like, this is hitting my vibe.
Right.
And I wanted to understand what you meant by that, because your vibe to me is casual and open. And this is a heavy song, man.
It is a very heavy song. And, it's funny. The vibe and feel of things are very different at very different times in your life. And from a music style perspective, I'm all over the map on things that I listen to, things that I like, times of my life that I listen to a certain kind of music, and other times I listen to a different kind. But I don't know, it just spoke to me. And maybe some of that is the survival and the real deep dive on, life and what you get out of it.
Right.
And, facing death head on at a young age and all the thoughts that go along with that when you're faced with that at a young age.
In a way, the chorus, don't rebuke me, you are angry, don't turn away from me, this is fury.
Right.
So connecting some dots here, there had to have been moments where you were feeling fury. Yet you didn't want your family, your friends, God, whatever, to turn away from you.
Right.
Is the song speaking to that moment?
Yeah, probably underneath it was. I didn't make that direct connection at the time, right? But it had to have influenced part of the decision. You can't live through all these things and not have that be a constant thing running in the background of your mind. So maybe subconsciously that was part of the reason that I liked it. And I just like some of the musical components to it in addition to the lyrics, right? I like heavy guitar lines. I like raw power in songs.
Who do you listen to in this space, the heavy space?
Well, I would say when I was younger, I was listening to bands like Ministry.
Wow.
But oddly, I started listening to Ministry in their pop phase early on when it was, I think it's 12-inch singles and under or something like that.
Yeah.
Their song Halloween, which had like a oddly pop vibe to it.
Yeah.
And then they went to a very
dark
heavy,
place,
dark
yeah.
metal place, all the way to Metallica, everything in between. And so, and I don't always associate heavy with, heavy metal as much as, I was going to say Ozzy, but you could put Ozzy in that bucket too. But, Van Halen has incredible guitar riffs and lines and stuff like that. And I think of them more as concert rock, stadium rock.
Yeah, and they are. I mean, look,
they're metal too. But.
Yeah, they're and they're pop. I mean,
100%.
Jump is pop, right?
Yeah.
I think when I write these, like every one of these starts differently. Many of them start with me diving into the psalm.
Mm-hmm.
Others, I do a lot of journal writing, stream of consciousness. In the wake of Song School, I'm now doing 30 songs in 30 days in under 30 minutes.
Wow.
I mean, I could spend all day doing this, but like I have family obligations, I have work obligations, so I really kind of have to boundary my time.
You're like the ESPN of music, the 30 under 30 of music.
I'm not alone in this.
3430, I should say.
I love that. There's a whole thing every February. There's something called FALM. I think it's February album writing month. But the basic idea is over the course of February, write and complete and refine 16 songs so you can record it for your next album. And I do these things called freelance songwriting 4 to 6 times a year, 7 days a week. You write a song in under 45 minutes to 90 minutes, depending on what you're prepared to commit to. My starting place for every song is different. The last basic category that I didn't mention was the one that this song started with.
Yeah, I'm very curious about that.
My son, Eitan, who is a hip hop guy, said he wanted to have a guitar. And if I came across a cheap one, because he knows that I go to Guitar Center, I go to Guitar 48 in Oxnard, and I'm a bargain hunter. I came across a beautiful Les Paul. So I was like, I don't know that I'm prepared to spend that much money. But this mustard, frankly ugly colored Les Paul Jr., I said, this is perfect for Eitan. It's $160. It's a great sounding guitar. It has a P90 pickup. It's kind of like a cross between a humbucker that you'd find on a Les Paul and a single coil that you'd find on a Strat. But anyway, I brought this thing home and I was like, oh my God, I love this thing. And I said to Eitan, I said, can I hang on to this for a few weeks? He said, sure. So that night I laid down the basic track for this song.
Okay, that's interesting.
And I do a lot of that. Sometimes just record into my phone. Sometimes I record it into Logic.
And did you know that you would use that track for this song?
I had no idea.
That's okay. I'm fascinated by that.
So, and I do this a lot. I kind of just bank stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I bank it just super informally, like into my iPhone, no amplification, and I'm playing an electric guitar, so it's super tinny, or I'll videotape myself playing it. Like as I'm doing these 30 for 30s, I've been using the resonator on that wall, and it's tuned to Open D, and Open D is something that I don't have a ton of familiarity with. It's different than standard tuning, but it's tuned to an Open D major chord. I have some familiarity, but not a ton. And because I only have 30 minutes, I can't also take the time to analyze it and say, okay, so you're playing an A major here, an E major there, and adding a ninth extension there. Like I can't do that. So just videotape it and it's there for posterity. And if I ever revisit the song, I can then take it apart. So that's what happened with this song. I just banked it, and it wasn't the full arrangement. It was just the ba ba cha, but that's all I had. I had a version of the chorus. This one's a little bit different, but I just banked it, and I was really drawn to it. My practice is to put things away and then come back to it.
Okay.
On the theory that whatever I have on the next round, if I love it as is, that's it. And if it needs to be revised, I revise. Right. Time usually gives me a better perspective on that. So I came to this, I was like, wow, I really love this. I'm going to put it aside. I don't think I lasted 2 days.
Yeah.
before I was like, okay, I have to find a psalm for this. And I started just trolling through the psalms, and I came across this one, and I was like, this is it.
Yeah.
And that's when I started writing the
That's
lyrics.
fascinating.
And that too is a process, by the way. I have to use this program called Master Writer.
Okay.
And I track my work whenever I can. I almost never forget to. So the first one is just the text of the psalm. The next one is cutting down the psalm to the verses that I liked.
Right.
So verse 2, do not punish. And I wrote in brackets rebuke, because I think that that's really right in Hebrew. Me in your wrath, do not chastise. Turn away. My brackets say, turn away from me in your fury. A copper bow was broken when you shot your arrows at me. There are holes in my flesh from your rage. My bones are broken from what I did. And I listed probably 6, 8, 10 of those. I then grabbed those, some of that language, and converted it into version 1. Don't rebuke me, you are angry. Don't turn away from me in your fury. Don't make holes in my flesh from your rage. My bones are already broken from what I did. My wounds sting and fester, the ones I caused. I am bent, I am bowed, I walk on gloom. Not all of this is in the psalm, but it's either in the Psalms or the commentaries,
Right.
or my extension of it. And that eventually turned into the lyrics you read. There are cuts on my skin. My bones are broken. I am bent. I am bowed. Mind about to explode. That's not in the Psalm. My wounds fester and cyst. That's my variation on the Psalm. Did I cause this? And so that's the process of how this evolved. And all of this somehow comes out of your mood and vibe. Oh, here's the last point I want to mention. I'm a big fan when even before I start writing the music for things, of saying, I want to go for Tom Petty, System of a Down, Beatles, and that affects the musical choices.
So what was the choice on this one? What was the band that you marked for that? Because I love the haunting nature of it. So what band was the influence?
I think I had a few bands in mind. I had some AC/DC in there.
Love AC/DC.
Me
okay.
too. But there's also some Radiohead.
That's a good call. It's
Yeah.
funny. I would not have said that right away, but that is very, very on point.
With the strum.
And some of those albums were very meaningful to me.
OK Computer, I still one of my favorite
Great.
albums.
Great.
And I also think that there's a little bit of System of a Down in there, because I'm a massive fan of theirs. And the guitar solo was straight out of Zeppelin. You know, I was like, okay, this requires like a Jimmy Page call out. And, I did my best Jimmy Page. I'll never be Jimmy Page,
great.
but that's what I had in mind.
I love it. I love it. Radiohead, that blew my mind. That's a really, because I was thinking about it before I came over. What bands would I, if asked the question, if Radiohead is spot on. That's great. And Zeppelin too, for the guitar line. But I'm just so curious about your musical influences growing up. What did you listen to as a kid? What were the things that got you hooked into music? Because this is clearly more than a passing fad or fascination.
It's a great question. So my parents always listened to the AM radio station that played Glenn Miller and Tommy Dorsey. In fact, I wrote a song for my mom where the chorus is, Bob Barker was a man my mother loved. She loved Eddie Cantor too. She loved Tommy Dorsey. Sinatra, of course, he was on her love list too. But more than anyone, she loved you. Obviously, my dad, right? So, that's the kind of music that she loved. So I grew up with that. I grew up before every one of the Jewish holidays, my mother had a set of records that she would play, and Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, she would play a specific one. In fact, the guy on the album, the album cover for that makes its way into the Bob Barker song. And I talk about this man that my mother loved, and it's a man whose face is spinning on an album, basically. And it was this kind of orchestral music. I have a playlist somewhere, but I don't remember what it is. Silberman, I think. It's Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur music. It's strings, and choirs. So I grew up with that and Yehoram Gaon, kind of like the Israeli version of Tony Bennett in the 70s. So that was the music of my youth. Then when my siblings left the house, I discovered a stack of records. And that's when I discovered Stevie Wonder and the Beatles, and I never turned back from there. That's when I got a membership to Columbia House and bought ELO and Tom Petty and Joe Jackson and the Police, the Specials, Jay Giles, WPLJ. Like that was my station.
Sure. Did you grow up in the city or the island?
I grew up in Far Rockaway, which is at the intersection among Brooklyn, Long Island, and Queens. And in high school is when I started kind of telling my parents I was going to school, and then I would take the subway and go to the city.
I was just curious with the PLJ reference.
Yeah. Well, was PLJ the city or is it
I think it was
in the island?
On the island, right?
Yeah.
And WNEW was out there as well, I think.
Correct.
And LIR?
LIR. I was eventually
LIR was very good.
I moved to LIR. That was because I had all the new music. Right. When I went to Israel, I lived there for a year. I was an avid reader of Guitar Player magazine. Obviously, look, there's the Doors, the Stones. When I went to Israel for the year, that's when I didn't have access to music. I'm sorry. I must mention Bruce Springsteen. I had a massive love affair with him. Although I never wrote like him, I just loved his stories and the power of his band. And, I felt like, okay, I could be the next Bruce Springsteen because my birthday is also September 23rd. Anyway, so the reason why I thought of Springsteen is because when I arrived in Israel for that very trip, you take a taxi or a shuttle, and the driver had music on. And I'm hearing the music, and I recognize it first as the Police and then as Bruce Springsteen. And then the DJ comes on and says, Ze haya hamishtara ve Baruch Springsteen. And I'm like, what? So Mishtara is police in Hebrew. And they changed Bruce to Baruch, which is a common Hebrew name that starts in B. And it wasn't Springsteen, it was Springstein. So I was like, oh, I'm in a new place. I've got to figure this out. Anyway, so I listened to all of that. But in Israel, every few months, my mother would send me my collected Guitar Player and Musician magazines. And in that year, I got introduced to Stevie Ray Vaughan. Mm-hmm. I got introduced to King Crimson.
Yep.
They've both been around, but I just never heard from them.
Right.
And I got introduced to Steve Vai, because it was, he came out with Flexible then. Right. Those three in particular were very important for me. In King Crimson's case, it was an introduction to Adrian Belew and by extension King Crimson because they had just come out with Beat or Discipline. And I had just, before I left, been experimenting with how you make all sorts of sounds with the guitar, delays and fuzzes and all these things. And I kind of took a year off because all I had was my acoustic guitar with me that year. I guess I had an electric, but I didn't have an amp, so whatever. The electric looked a lot like that one. It was a Lyle, the one behind you. Yeah. And I just became fascinated with that style of music. And because I could only hear Neil and Jack in me, so it must have been Beat. At that time, which didn't feel like it was in an odd time. I didn't pay attention to it. But Steve Vai was 7/4 against 4/4. So the guitars were playing in 7/4, bum, 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 but the drums were playing in 4/4. So it just kind of expanded my brain in a way, because I was like, oh, you could do that? You can play in something other than 4/4 or 3/4, and you can play 4/4 against it. And that's when I started really getting into the King Crimson stuff, which has 13/8 against, 17/4 and other crazy times. Now, the palliative to that was Stevie Ray Vaughan, because he's an out and out blues player.
Yep.
Now, he's brilliant. Well, may he rest in peace. But I had all this super complicated technical and technological stuff going on in the same breath that I had this just get to the fucking point in Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Yep.
And that swing became my musical swing for, I'm still in it. Like I record songs with just me and a guitar, and I record songs with tremendous layers of technological complexity. When I'm feeling up for the challenge, I will pursue technical complexity as well. I still have the 7/4 and the 16/13 and whatever other weirdness in me. I tend to let that particular freak flag fly when I'm playing live with other musicians. Right. But when I'm alone, left to my own devices, I'm like, oh, how am I going to program that into Logic? So I mean, I do it, but it's less often than probably my heart desires.
Right. Interesting. Very interesting.
Did that answer your question?
It did. Okay. It did. And I was kind of curious because at the top you had a very analytical breakdown of some technical stuff. And I think about like kids I grew up who were extraordinary guitar players who would just pick it up and run, right? And just jam and with no flow or formality to it. So it's interesting to see how different people put it together.
I've been really blessed. I've had great musical mentors, including all of those, Amy Speece, Rebecca Folsom, and more. And I've had great rabbinic mentors, rabbis and other educators on this text journey. And I'm not observant the way I was growing up, but because I remain so deeply immersed in the study, I feel like I'm observant. Like that's my way of connecting the dots between, life on earth, in joy or in difficulty, right? You connect with other people, you talk big things with them, and that connects you to something greater than yourself. And now all of a sudden, I happen to call it God, but that something greater than myself is in the room with us. And we may forget this conversation tomorrow, a week, or 2 weeks, but it's in our data banks and it's influencing. Thank you so much for joining me, Jim.
Thank you for having me. It's a real treat.
It's my pleasure. Thanks so much for listening. Special thanks to Jim Ehrich for joining me, to David Coyle for his help in producing this episode, to E. Rose for his help producing the song in this episode, to Jessica Hanna-Sweedler for her help on social media, to Liat Silvera for designing the podcast logo, and to my wife, Shari, who gives me the time, space, and support to make the music and this podcast happen. You can find Don't Turn Away From Me and all of the other songs in this song cycle on most platforms that stream or download music, including Spotify and Apple. In the next episode of The Rest is Commentary, I will be talking with my friend, artist, educator, and so much more, Emily Chang. We discuss how art and music operate on different planes of understanding, the importance of the editing process in creating impactful art, the emotional impact of lyrics, music, and art, how the shrinking dialogue in society reflects a focus on triviality, Taoism's unique perspective on the universe and existence, the concept of a chosen people and its cosmic perspective, how personal growth involves healing and understanding one's identity, and so much more, all inspired by Emily's thoughts after listening to Unwrapping Heaven, inspired by Psalm 104. Please join us.